The learning objectives for 2.3 are: identify the elements that carbon bonds with to make up life's molecules, and to explain the functions of each of the 4 groups of macromolecules. As you go through the PowerPoint and read the section in the book, this is a good way to organize the content in this section in a graphic organizer. As you go along, try to think how you would fill in the graphic organizer. Carbon is essential to life as we know it. Organic chemistry is the branch of chemistry that studies compounds that contain carbon. Carbon atoms have 4 valence electrons, allowing them to form covalent bonds with many elements such as hydrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, sulfur, and nitrogen. These carbon compounds have many different chemical properties that living things depend on. Carbon atoms can also bond to one another. This makes it possible for carbon to form long chains or even rings. No other element can build molecules as large as carbon can build, which makes it the building block for life on our planet. A monomer is a small chemical unit that makes up a polymer. A polymer are molecules composed of many monomers and makes up macromolecules. A carbohydrate is a compound made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms. It's a type of nutrient that is the major source of energy for the body. Macromolecules are giant molecules because they are very large. Most macromolecules form through polymerization, a process in which larger and larger compounds are built by joining smaller compounds together. The smaller compounds are called monomers. They join together to form polymers. The monomers in a polymer can be identical. The monomers can also differ. The 4 major groups of macromolecules found in living things are carbohydrates, lipids, nucleic acids, and proteins. Starch, sugar, cellulose are different types of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms, usually in a 1:2:1 ratio. That is 1 carbon to 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen. Organisms use carbohydrates to store and release energy, as well as for structural support and protection. The breakdown of sugar, such as glucose, supplies energy to cells. Extra sugar is stored in complex carbohydrates. Single sugar molecules called monosaccharides include glucose, galactose, and fructose. Galactose is found in milk, fructose is found in fruits. Complex carbohydrates are polysaccharides formed by joining together many monosaccharides. Many animals store excess sugar as a polysaccharide called glycogen. Glycogen is broken down into glucose when glucose levels are low or when needed for muscle contraction. Plants store excess sugar in a polysaccharide called starch. They also make another polysaccharide called cellulose. Cellulose gives plants rigidity. Wood is mostly cellulose. A lipid is a macromolecule made mostly from carbon and hydrogen atoms. It includes fats, oils, and waxes. A nucleotide is a subunit of which nucleic acids are composed. It is made up of a 5-carbon sugar, a phosphate group, and a nitrogen base. A protein is a macromolecule that contains carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. It is needed by the body for growth and repair. An amino acid is a compound with an amino on one end and a carboxyl group on the other. Lipids are macromolecules that are usually not soluble in water. Lipids are mostly carbon and hydrogen. Lipids include the compounds called fats, oils, and waxes. Lipids can be used to store energy, and they form important parts of biological membranes and waterproof coverings. Many lipids are formed by combining a glycerol molecule with fatty acids. If the carbon atoms in a fatty acid are all joined by single bonds, the fatty acid is said to be saturated. If there is at least one carbon-carbon double bond, the fatty acid is unsaturated. Lipids with fatty acids containing more than one double bond are polyunsaturated. The terms saturated, unsaturated, and polyunsaturated appear on food labels. Nucleotides are monomers that consist of three components: a 5-carbon sugar, a phosphate group, and a nitrogen base. Nucleic acids are polymers made from nucleotide monomers. Nucleotides such as ATP are important for capturing and transferring energy. Two types of nucleic acids are ribonucleic acid, or RNA, and deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA. Nucleic acids function to store and transmit heredity or genetic information. Proteins are macromolecules that have nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen atoms. Proteins are polymers of molecules known as amino acids. Amino acids are compounds with an amino group and a carboxyl group. In addition to forming proteins, amino acids have other functions. Amino acids are linked by covalent peptide bonds to form polypeptides or proteins. The peptide bond is formed between the amino group of one amino acid and the carboxyl group of another amino acid. Some proteins function to control the rate of reactions and regulate cell processes. Others form important cellular structures, while still others transport substances into or out of cells to help to fight disease. There are more than 20 different amino acids found in nature. All amino acids have the amino and carboxyl groups needed to join them together by covalent peptide bonds. Amino acids differ from each other because they have different side chains called the R group. These R groups have different chemical properties. Amino acids form polypeptide chains. They form them according to the instructions in DNA. Polypeptides are not straight chains. They bend and twist to form 3D shapes. Scientists describe 4 levels of structures in proteins. The primary structure is the sequence of the amino acids. The secondary structure is the folding or coiling of the polypeptide chain. The tertiary structure is the complete 3-dimensional arrangement of the polypeptide chain. The 4th level structure, if the protein has more than one polypeptide chain, the 4th level is the way the polypeptides are arranged in relation to each other. Proteins remain their shape because of forces that include ionic and covalent bonds, van der Waals forces, and hydrogen bonds.